Hi. Hi, good day, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us. I'm so glad to welcome you to this second webinar on green finance taxonomies. And yeah, I'm so happy to see you, some people who joined us on the first one. In our first webinar, we explored the foundations of the green finance taxonomies, their governance structure, how to design it, and the principles that make this tool credible, valuable, but also inclusive and aligned with both national and international standards. Today, we are moving forward and we are having this second webinar on the implementation, proportionality, and impact measurement of the green finance taxonomies. And I'm so glad to have very experts on this topic. So today we are hearing from countries that are developed and implemented such tools. That is our experts from Bangladesh Bank, Financial Regulatory Commission of Mongolia, Banco Central de Paraguay, Banco Central in Philippines, and National Bank of Rwanda. And it is my pleasure to having them on board today. Next one, please. Next slide. Thank you very much. For those that are not familiar with me or doesn't know me, I'm Laura Ramos and I'm the Senior Policy Manager for the Inclusive Green Finance. And I would like to, next one, please. I would like to run the housekeeping. If you are not familiar with this tool, I would like to tell you that we are having these functions. So please, I would like to ask you to mute yourself. And in case that you would like to contribute during the Q&A session, please unmute yourself or use the raise hand function, and that you can find at the bottom of your screen. Also, if possible, I will request you to have a photo in a few minutes. So in case that is possible, please, I would love that you switch on your camera. And for this one, we are also having the function of the Q&A session, or the Q&A function, or the chat box, where you can post your questions and we will take them from there. For today, we are having interpretation. So we have the French and Spanish. So please just go through the function of interpretation and choose your language. With this, I also would like to tell you that you can find all the materials in this, scanning this QR code or going through this link. So you will find a concept note, the speaker's profile, and also some reading materials. Okay, so yeah, now is the time for having a group photo. I'm not sure if we have many audience. Maybe we, I don't know, Kat, if we have many, or maybe we can take the photo towards the end of the session.
Yeah, that's fine. I think at the end would be better. Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's keep the photo later. And okay, so for this webinar, I'm very pleased to introduce our moderator. She is Marisela Rivas. Marisela is a senior economist at the Economic and Financial Research Department in the Central Bank of El Salvador. She coordinates the institutional research agenda, elaborate research in different topics, such as climate change and its impacts in the economy and financial stability, green finance products and service in financial institutions, climate change projection models, among others. And of course, she is institutional representative for the working group, but more importantly, she's our co-chair in the IGF working group. And with this, I would like to invite you to welcome Marisela. And thank you very much for moderating this session. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, Laura. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone, and welcome to this second webinar on green finance taxonomies. I'm really excited to share with you and to be able to introduce the amazing presenters that we have today. We are going to share really interesting information. And Laura already talked about the first webinar that we had, but I just wanted to remember you which participants, which countries we shared last time. We shared the development journeys of Nepal, of Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the Central Bank of Kenya, and the Bank of Zambia. Today, after sharing the basic topics about taxonomies, we are going a little deeper, and we are talking today about the implementation, proportionality, and impact measurement of green finance taxonomies. As you know, green finance taxonomies are really crucial tools for classifying economic activities that support environmental and sustainability objectives. They also, in general terms, they provide guidance for financial institutions in their investment and lending decisions. But here in AFI, we go a step further because we are interested that the green finance taxonomies, they're not just useful for investors, but we are interested that they get to the vulnerable groups that are affected by climate change. And we really are interested in going deeper. So I think this webinar, it's really interested on that aspect. We are going to check really interested implementations for about these countries that we are going to check. And also, I wanted to highlight that we are going to learn about all strategies for phase implementation, disclosure mandates, and monitoring systems. We really can learn because each country and each member that are represented here, we are not on the same stage of taxonomies. For example, in my country, El Salvador, I am part of the governance of the green taxonomy that is being developed, and we are still constructing that green taxonomy, and it's really not an easy process. It's a long process. Many actors have to be involved. You have to take involved also even the political side, and it shares so many aspects that I think that we can learn a lot from hearing our peer journeys and our peer overview about the green taxonomies that these countries have. The objectives of the session are to examine strategies for implementation green finance taxonomies, as I was telling you, also to discuss proportionality and practical consideration for SMEs and smaller institutions, also to explore monitoring, reporting, and disclosure requirements, and to review tools for evaluating taxonomy effectiveness and climate impact. So get ready for our presenters today. The first one, next slide, please. Next, please. Next, please. Thank you. So our first speaker that I'm really glad to introduce is Orjin. She is from the Financial Regulatory Commission of Mongolia. And let me just give you a quick bio about Orjin. She is the primary representative of the Inclusive Green Finance Working Group, and she serves, she began her career in the capital market sector where she has been responsible for overseeing and advancing sustainable finance regulations. Origin holds a bachelor's degree in economics, and her areas of expertise are green taxonomies, sustainable finance, and green finance research. So I'm really glad to give the floor to Origin.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Origin Musahan, and I am officer at the Securities Market Department of Financial Regulatory Commission of Mongolia. As far as our institution, the Financial Regulatory Commission is the non-banking financial sector regulator, covers various financial institutions such as securities companies, non-bank financial institutions, insurance companies, and saving and credit cooperatives, real estate brokers. And I would like to introduce you to the green policies and regulatory environment of Mongolia's financial sector. And next slide, please. We are implementing policy and regulatory measures in phases to transition to a green inclusive market. In 2019, the Financial Stability Board of Mongolia approved the green taxonomy, and our country became one of the first countries to adopt such a taxonomy. This was a big step in fighting greenwashing and directing more funding towards sustainable projects. After the taxonomy, we introduced a green bond framework in 2021, following International Capital Market Association and climate bond standards. We specified the guidelines of issuing green bonds in the regulation of registration of the debt instrument. And in 2022, the Financial Stability Board adopted its National Sustainable Finance Roadmap. This outlines a vision to transform Mongolia's financial sector to sustainable STEM by 2030. And that year, we also published the ESG and sustainability reporting guideline for financial institutions, including issuers and corporates. This guidance gives companies an overview of global sustainability reporting trends and a clear 8-step process to help listed companies and issuers start reporting on sustainability. And it's designed to help listed companies, future issuers, and other businesses share their sustainability practices. This year, we require first-class companies, that means top companies who are listed on the stock exchange, to disclose their ESG report, and 29 companies have already reported their ESG disclosures in the first half of this year. In the future, we plan to expand the requirements to companies in the second and third tiers and even non-listed companies. And the FRC approved a model guideline for developing environmental and social risk management, procedures for NBFIs to regulate, process, and systematically identify, assess, and manage the potential environmental and social impacts and risks when issuing loans. This model guideline aligned with the NBFI's sustainability policy provides detailed instructions on how they should address environmental and social issues within the lending operations. In 2023, the Financial Stability Board of Mongolia approved SDG financing taxonomy, which extends green taxonomy to social sectors. Also, in January of 2023, Mongolian Association Dealers of Mongolia regulation on securities registration in the OTC market was approved by our institution. As per the regulation, it's now possible to issue green bonds in the OTC market. In 2025, we revised regulatory of bond framework following International Capital Market Association standards to cover social and sustainability bonds as well. Also this year, we approved the amendment of the regulatory framework of NBFIs. As per the regulation, they can raise external finance up to 80% of total equity if green loans represent 5% of portfolio. Next slide, please. As for the green finance taxonomy, the green finance activities as one of the most critical priority activities to be implemented. The development of a commonly agreed green taxonomy is building block to create an operational sustainable financial system and will help reorient capital to sectors and projects that substantially contribute to environmental sustainability and emission reduction. Responding to this demand, a Green Taxonomy Committee consists of key financial regulators, ministries, financial sector, industry associations, was established in February 2019 with the objective to create a green taxonomy frameworks that provides a list of economic activities eligible for green investments. To support the committee, 6 technical working groups were established, bringing together representatives from policymaking and standard-setting government organizations, financial institutions, businesses, and project developers, international organizations. The committee and working groups were advised by the supported Tsinghua Center of Finance and Development and Columbia University experts who shared their valuable knowledge based on China's experience of developing and implementing a green bond catalog and green lending guidelines, as well as globally used taxonomies, best practices of organizations such as IFC and European Union. As for the green taxonomy, identified 8 sectors: renewable energy, low pollution energy, energy efficiency, green buildings, pollution prevention and control, sustainable water and waste use, sustainable agriculture, land use, forestry and ecotourism, clean transport. The activities identified in this version of the taxonomy will be reviewed every 3 to 5 years following policy shifts, scientific developments, technological change, and new industry needs in the green finance space. Next slide, please. And Mongolia made ambitious commitments as part of the Paris Agreement in the Vision 2050 and the National Green Development Policy to lower its carbon emissions by 22.7% against the business as usual scenario by 2030 and achieve a development pathway that's green and inclusive with improved quality of life, better human development, good governance, and quality education. The objective of the Mongolian Sustainable Finance Roadmap is to agree on an integrated, multi-stakeholder strategic approach towards accelerating the development of a sustainable financial system in the country by 2030 in alignment with the country's sustainable development and climate targets. The roadmap defines 6 pillars and 24 strategic actions that will help transition Mongolia's financial system into a sustainable one. It also sets target for green loans to 10% in banks and 5% in non-bank financial institutions. Thus, 50% of the necessary funding of the national determinant contribution will be provided by the banking and non-banking financial sectors. Next slide, please. Mongolia's adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals finance taxonomy will enable it to record and report on the contribution of finance and investment flow to the Sustainable Development Goals. Purpose of taxonomies aims to classify and identify economic activities that are aligned with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The taxonomy is based on the Green Taxonomy and consists of 12 categories. The loan balance of non-bank financial institutions in these categories reached 143.4 billion tuariks as first half of 2025, which is equivalent to 2.1% of the total loan balance of the sector. Next slide, please. Since we created a regulatory environment for green, social, and sustainability bonds, these types of bonds have been successfully issued, and
Hi, Jin, are you okay? Back on? I think we lost you
I'm
for a
out
bit.
of
Yeah.
internet. Yeah, and next slide, please.
Okay, good.
Yeah. As far as I mentioned before, NBFIs can raise external finance up to 90%, or I mean 80% of total equity if green loans represent 5% of portfolio. It imposes the following loan to equity ratio requirements. And previous slide, please. Next and next. Okay. In the future, we are planning to take following measures: develop third-party verification system, and as for the bond guarantee, the establishment of a bond guarantee, which would assist in increasing the confidence of issuers and investors, and capacity building. We set up partner and deliver training programs for issuers, investors, and verifiers, also regulators. In following years, we will create a regulatory environment for sustainability-linked bonds. Also, in
I think we
Yeah, I
lost
think we've
Origin
lost
again.
her. Yes, yes.
Yeah. We are going to wait just a moment.
Okay.
Thank you. Because this is the last slide for her, so we are just going to wait because she wants to finish the presentation.
Sorry, I'm out of internet and the connection is so bad.
Don't worry,
And
Origin.
okay, next slide, please. And this slide contains QR codes to green policy documents adopted by our country. And you guys can read them by scanning the following QR code. And this is the end of my slide. And so I would like to end by saying, keep peer learning and grow together. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I sincerely hope you guys were able to get the information you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Origin, especially for the exact timing for the presentation. It was really interesting, especially some of the highlights, like the 6 working groups that you created for the green taxonomy. One of the sectors that was really interesting was the ecotourism, how it's based on the National Sustainable Finance Roadmap of the country, that is really integral, and the goal of increasing the green credits. So I think it's a really interesting journey, the one of Mongolia. So thank you very much, Origin. Now, please, next slide. Thank you. So now it is my pleasure to introduce to Rodora Brazil. She is the Deputy Director of the Supervisory Policy and Research Department and Financial Supervision Sector of the Central Bank of Philippines. So Rodora has also a really interesting journey. She is one of the pioneer members of the FSS Technical Working Group on Sustainable Finance. She is involved in the policy initiatives and interagency coordination activities related to sustainable finance. She is also a co-lead member of the Bank of Philippines Sustainable Central Banking Program on self-assessment, which is tasked to identify gaps and the manner of integrating sustainability or ESG factors in the key functions or operations of the bank. Also, her areas of expertise are environmental and social risk management, because she is a certified financial risk manager. Also, another area is green taxonomies and sustainable finance. So it is my pleasure to give the floor to Rodora.
Hello. I hope you can hear me clearly.
We can hear you perfect.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good morning again. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from Manila. So thank you for the introduction, Maricela. So if we could go to the next slide for my presentation. Okay, thank you. So this slide shows you what we have done so far through the years, starting from 2021, leading to the issuance of the Sustainable Finance Taxonomy Guidelines of the Philippines. So let me highlight some key points here. First is on the foundation. So there is a national strategy or roadmap, which is also the same with what Origin has mentioned regarding their jurisdiction. So in the Philippines, we have the Sustainable Finance Roadmap as well. So this serves as basis for the development of our local taxonomy. Second, there are existing platforms or governance structures which we had leveraged to ensure consistent actions on sustainable finance. So we have the Financial Sector Forum and the Interagency Task Force on Sustainable Finance, or what we call the Green Force. So what is this Green Force? It's an interagency body composed of the Department of 18 domestic agencies, which is led by the Ministry of Finance and the Climate Change Commission. And other members include the financial sector regulators, such as the Central Bank of the Philippines, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Insurance Commission, and there are some representatives as well from the Ministries of Energy, Environment and Natural Resources, Agriculture. So those are just some of the members. So for the implementation of the recommendations under the roadmap, there are working clusters created to operationalize those recommendations. And one of the working clusters is comprised of the financial sector regulators, or the members of the Financial Sector Forum. So what is the FSF? This is a collaborative body comprised of the four financial sector regulators, and they are tasked to review and harmonize existing regulations on corporate governance, risk management, and disclosure requirements relative to the sustainable finance, as well as to develop a sustainable finance taxonomy. And then third point that I would like to emphasize here is on the leverage, where we had leverage on collective knowledge and stakeholder engagement. So we benefited from our participation from the ASEAN Taxonomy Board as a working group member, and now currently as a vice chair of the board. So the ASEAN Taxonomy Board is the body overseeing the development of the ASEAN Taxonomy. And aside from that, aside from being a member of that board and its working groups, we also had discussions with the Sustainable Finance Institute of Asia to have broader lens in developing or in looking at different national taxonomies in the region. And we also engage counterpart foreign regulators to learn also from their experiences during the development and what are the challenges that they have faced in the implementation of their respective taxonomies. So aside from that, we also had technical discussions. The members of the Financial Sector Forum had technical discussions with development partners and also with relevant government agencies to enhance the development of the local taxonomy. And then for the finalization stage, the guidelines, the Sustainable Finance Taxonomy Guidelines was approved by the Financial Sector Forum principals, and the BSP, or the Central Bank of the Philippines, together with the Securities and Exchange Commission, we issued our respective implementing regulations for our supervised entities. Next slide, please. So as I earlier mentioned about the foundation, so this is the foundation, the Sustainable Finance Roadmap, which contains high-level actions of the whole of government approach to promote sustainable finance in the Philippines. So this has three strategic pillars: fostering on conducive policy environment. Second is mobilizing sustainable financing. And third is developing a robust pipeline of investments aligned with the country's climate commitments and development goals. So the development of the principles-based taxonomy is one of the pillars under the financing pillar, or the second pillar. Next slide, please. Okay. So the taxonomy guidelines is not a standalone document. It works with other national strategy documents such as the Philippine Development Plan, the Nationally Determined Contribution, and the National Adaptation Plan of the Philippines. Excuse me. So the taxonomy guidelines is largely patterned after the ASEAN taxonomy for sustainable finance, particularly the foundation framework. So what is a foundation framework? It is a principles-based or qualitative assessment of activities. It uses traffic light system guided by sector agnostic decision tree to classify economic activities complying with the identified environmental objectives and essential criteria. So why did we pursue a principles-based approach? This is, we believe that this approach offers the necessary flexibility to accommodate emerging developments while maintaining clear and consistent guidance supported by the guiding questions and decision trees. This approach also allows our supervised entities, the banks, and also the corporate users to progressively build their understanding and capabilities and enhancing the usability and relevance of the taxonomy. So at the time, the availability as well of the sectoral data also presents some challenges. That's why we focus first on the principles-based approach. And then the taxonomy is not static, it's a dynamic document which will be updated in line, of course, with market and technological developments. And also the taxonomy is guided by some principles, as you can see in your screen, and essentially these guiding principles are also aligned with the ASEAN taxonomy. Next slide, please. Okay, so the taxonomy as a tool, it provides a clear set of guidance and criteria to determine whether an activity is environmentally and socially sustainable. And in our case, the primary purpose of the taxonomy is to direct and increase capital flows, whether domestic or from foreign sources, towards priority sectors and activities that support climate and sustainability objectives of the government. And the taxonomy also aims to promote transparency and credibility, reduce the risk of false claims on how green an activity is, or what we call the greenwashing. Next slide, please. Okay, so the local taxonomy was developed with interoperability in mind. So we adopted the design elements of the ASEAN taxonomy, such as environmental objectives. So we are focusing on two environmental objectives, the climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation. And well, the future environmental objectives that will be covered by the taxonomy are also articulated in the document, such as the biodiversity and the circular economy. And aside from this, we also have the essential criteria, which are also aligned with ASEAN taxonomy and also with the EU taxonomies, such as the do no significant harm, the remedial measures to transition, and also the minimum social safeguards. And then the traffic light system, wherein we follow the green, amber, and red classification system. Next slide, please. So aside from from the EOs or the environmental objectives and the essential criteria, we also, our focus sectors are also articulated in the local taxonomy. And basically, we align this priority sectors with the National Adaptation Plan and also the nationally determined contributions of the Philippines. So for the adaptation, these 8 sectors or priority areas are the same sectors articulated in the National Adaptation Plan. Similarly, on mitigation, the focus sectors in the taxonomy are the same areas identified, or the same sectors rather identified in the nationally determined contributions. We also recognize the role of enablers or the enabling sectors, such as research and consultation, technology solutions. So these are part of the enabling activities that may be financed under the local taxonomy. So these sectors are also important because they improve the performance of other sectors and activities and do not themselves harm other environmental objectives. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are some of the considerations, or rather the points, factors that we considered when we think of implementation of the taxonomy. Number one is institutional readiness. So having different stages of maturity of the banks, at the time when we are developing the taxonomy, the large, well, of course, the large banks, they are already waiting for the finalization of the taxonomy. But for the small banks, which are very critical for serving the small and medium enterprises, they are still grappling, or they are still in the awareness stage. So what we did to address this uneven level of awareness and readiness of our supervised entities is to have a phased adoption of the taxonomy. So we initially focus on climate change mitigation and adaptation because first, adaptation is the priority climate action of the Philippines. And second, mitigation. And second, these two environmental objectives are already covered by the national strategy documents. We already have the National Adaptation Plan, the nationally determined contribution. So we focus on that to environmental objectives. And second, we adopted, or we provided an observation period. This is when we issued the regulation, the implementing regulations of the BSP, and also of that of the Securities and Exchange Commission, we provided a 1-year observation period. So this serves as the breathing space for our banks, for our supervised entities, and then we focus on capacity building, conducting briefings for both banks and capital market players, and also for our own supervisors. So that was in 2024, and even up to this year, we're still conducting series of trainings for our supervised entities. So second consideration is on data availability. I earlier mentioned that there are some data that we have to get from other relevant government agencies, and we are not also sure at that time if the data are indeed available, or the data are available, but you have to mine all the data. So it will take time. That's why we initially we initially decided to focus initially on principles-based approach instead of having both approaches, the principles-based and the technical screening criteria, to be available to the supervised entities. So given this challenge on data, we focus first on principles-based approach. And then another consideration is the potential unintended consequence to vulnerable groups, particularly the small and medium enterprise, because there are some points that are insights that having a taxonomy would be more exclusionary or would hinder financing to small and medium enterprise. So what we did is to emphasize on inclusivity. We dedicated and we hope that having a dedicated section in the taxonomy focus on the assessment of MSMEs activities would somehow signal that the promotion of sustainable finance is not to exclude the vulnerable group, but rather emphasize that they are part of the sustainable finance ecosystem. And another consideration is on the availability as well of bankable or sustainable projects. So that's why in the when we issue the regulations, we also classify that financing of activities such as if an activity is not yet aligned with the taxonomy, they still can be financed, but should not be labeled as a taxonomy aligned. So we need to clarify those misconceptions, and it could be addressed by having series of capacity building for finance providers and also for our non-financial corporate project developers or companies. So to address this, there's really it's very important to have the coordination and engagement with other financial sector regulators and also other government agencies. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so since the issuance of the taxonomy in February 2024, we conducted series of trainings, as I mentioned earlier, for our own supervisors, for banks, and also capital market players. So there are times that we have a joint conduct of trainings. The Central Bank of the Philippines and also the Securities and Exchange Commission, we conduct joint trainings for capital market players. And then in the case of the BSP, aside from the implementing regulation that we have issued in February 2024, we also issued series of supplementary guidance, and this include the memoranda enumerated in the screen. So we have to clarify the financing of excluded activities, because when they see the list of the exclusion list in the document, there have been feedback that all these activities will not be financed anymore. So we have to clarify the treatment on these excluded activities. And then we also provided a short, or rather a ready reference, a user guide to have a simple guide for the use of the taxonomy. And then just recently, we released an FAQ to clarify the provisions of the local taxonomy for consistent interpretation and implementation of the provisions. And then moving forward, these are just some of the initiatives that we also plan to do to ensure smooth implementation of the taxonomy. So currently, we are finalizing additional guidance, providing a list of activities, but focusing on climate change adaptation, and those activities are mapped against the National Adaptation Plan. And second, we are also developing this one in coordination with the Bankers Association of the Philippines. We intend to develop a prudential reporting tool that is aligned with the taxonomy. And currently, we are updating the taxonomy to include the circular economy objective. So these are just some of the ongoing initiatives around taxonomy. So I'll end here, and I hope I was able to share how we are implementing right now the taxonomy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rodora. It was also really interesting. And you talked about other topics because, of course, each country has its own characteristics for the green taxonomies. It's really interesting, the one of the living document, because I think, yeah, taxonomies they have to be a flexible and living document. It cannot be rigid because it's always changing, and it has to be evaluating. It has to be evaluated through time. So it was really interesting also the division between mitigation and adaptation, and the importance that you highlighted of the data availability. So thank you, Rodora. It's also, next slide, please. Now it's also my pleasure to introduce you to our next speaker. It's Chowdhury. I hope I pronounce it okay. And he is the director of the Sustainable Finance Department of the Bangladesh Bank. And I want to give you some interesting data of Chowdhury. He's working right now in Sustainable Finance Department of Bangladesh Bank. And he has a really long experience that dates from 1999 in the Bangladesh Bank. His contribution in the policy formulation and supervision of the banking industry are acknowledged several times. In 2015, he was awarded with the Bangladesh Bank Employee Recognition. He was a key member in formulating the sustainable finance policy for banks and FIS in Bangladesh in 2023. Environmental social risk management, guideline and green bond policy for banks in 2022. And he has also really long experience, but for the time, I'm going to stop there. So I'm going to give you the microphone. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maricela, for the great introductions. And I thank all of my fellow colleagues, the IGF members. So it's really honor to invite me for giving some experience in my country journey. So just I would like to share a overview. How could we actually, how are we going to the greening our financial industry? So, though actually Bangladesh Bank started its journey for greening the financial industry since 2011. And actually for focusing or for achieving the sustainable development goal through the INDC and NDC target, Bangladesh Bank established the dedicated department, that is the Sustainable Finance Department, for accelerating the sustainable finance and green finance. And how could we actually drive the green activities? Actually, we drive the green activities through the policy interventions, subsidized low-cost refinancing, and then accelerate the green and sustainable finance policy. And after implementing our sustainable finance policy, as on December, as of the December 2024, as a total outstanding of the sustainable finance, around 6,000 to 258.2 billion local currency in our industry, which is actually accounted for the 12.40% of the GDP. So this is the excellent and remarkable achievements for our economy. And how could actually going to the decarbonization financing actually through our refinance scheme for promoting the sustainable finance and green finance. That means the three refinance scheme, which actually after implementing of those projects under the refinance scheme, reducing 1 million tons GHG gas emissions yearly. Next slide, please. And I show you as an active member of the SBFN, AFI, and the NGFS, and also the ITPN. Bangladesh Bank is advancing the sustainable finance and green finance and also the financial systems. And how actually we accelerating our sustainable finance. That means by giving the policy supports and the promoting the sustainable finance through the sustainable financial products, and also the financial supports through the refinance scheme and the climate resilience policy activities, and also the awareness and the capacity building. Next slide, please. Actually, this is just I show the this is our journey. As you see that though we issued the sustainable finance policy, where that includes the three taxonomy. One is the sustainable finance taxonomy. Number two is the green finance taxonomy, and also the climate finance taxonomy. You see that we initially, then means that since 2011, we Bangladesh banks to prepare the financial industries for growing the sustainable finance. In the year actually 2015, after establishing the sustainable finance department, we have taken a lot of initiatives for preparedness of the industries. You see that in the year 2017, we issued the ESRM guidelines, and we instructed the banks to identify the 55 products of the green products. Then we go for the development of the sustainable finance policy. And during the developing of the sustainable finance policy, we rigorously discuss along with the stakeholder, and we severally sit with the especially those who are the implementer, that means the player of the financial industries. Then we finalize our sustainable finance policies, and side by side for promoting and for encouraging the sustainable finance, green finance, we also develop a sustainability rating methodology. That means that under the sustainability rating of the banks and FIs, we yearly assess and rated the banks and finance company under the five measure component. One is the sustainable finance indicators measure components, that is called the environmental and the climate sustainability. And second one is the financial sustainability. That means the core banking activities of the industry. So this is we call the indirect, that means the non-financial incentives for the banks for a competitive to grow the competitiveness within the banks. That's why we actually develop this rating methodology, and always we and yearly we rated the bank, and top performance. This is the reward for the banking industry. Top performance will be disclosed in our websites. And in the year 2021, we giving the lending quota for the banks. This is the mandatory. Each and every bank should disburse 5% of the total term loan disbursements of their portfolio should be the green finance, and 20% of the total term loan should be disbursed as a sustainable finance. And in the year, actually, we again updated our sustainable finance policy. So some in this case, some of the some person raised the questions why we again reviewed our sustainable policy within the 3 years, because the Bangladesh government of Bangladesh has taken a lot of initiatives for overcoming the climate change adverse activities. And one of the important document is the National Adaptation Plan. And for implementing of the National Adaptation Plan, actually government estimated that 230 billion US dollar is needed for implementing or for intervening the 113 projects. And government actually estimated out of the 230 billion US dollar, 10 to 20% from the they estimated or they expected from the private sector. That's why we for better engagement the private sector in promoting the sustainable finance, green finance. That's why we again revisited our sustainable finance policy, and also we align with our National Adaptation Plan. And another one is this: in the year 2023, we issued the sustainability and the climate-related financial disclosure by adopting the IFRS S1 and S2. As all of you know that this is the ultimately mandatory requirement by the IFRS Foundation or the ISSB. Every economy should go to disclose their climate and sustainability related financial disclosures to its financial statements. So, and in the year 1 year back, actually in the year 2022, we again revisited our ESRM guidelines, and we actually include the 10 specific sector for complying the environmental and social due diligence. And some of and our next step to design or to develop the climate risks management guidelines, green balance policy, and also the carbon footprint measurement policy, and as well as the green credit guarantee scheme like that. Next slide, please. Here I said actually we include the 3 taxonomy in our sustainable finance policy, and also we give the we define the sustainable finance, green finance, and the climate finance. Also, we give the green product list for avoiding the green washings, and also we include a exclusion list for easier taking in the easier for the bank and finance companies people for taking the lending decisions. And you see in our slide there is the core component of the our national our sustainable finance policy. That means that we are trying to define the sustainable finance, then the finance taxonomy and the green finance taxonomy, and as well as the climate finance taxonomy, and also the list of green products, project initiatives we included in the taxonomy, and the targets of the lending decisions, also the monitoring tools and the screening process. All of the things actually we included in our sustainable finance policy for better understanding of the bank and finance companies people. Next, please. And this is the 14 sectors. That means what I said earlier, around 94 products under the 14 sectors we clearly defined. Here I would like to assure you that we actually follow the whitelist approach. Actually, why we follow the whitelist approach? This is very much easier for the banking people and the finance people, and for easier to take that lending decisions. But if you go through the TSC, that means the technical screening method, it is very much complex, and also there is a many scope for the greenwashing. So as per our like our Bangladesh, that means the developing country, this is whitelist approach is very much easier for the for better implementation of the industry. So these are the 14 sectors. That means the renewable energy, energy efficiency, alternative energy. These sectors actually comprises or consist of the both climate change mitigation and the climate change adaptations as well. Next slide, please. And we have also the green bond taxonomy. This is the another taxonomy for issuance of the bond and also for the investing the green bond. Actually, why we go for the green bond taxonomy? Actually, we go for the taxonomy to popularize or to operationalize the longer term, raising the longer term fund. As all of we know that bank and finance, bank, especially the banks, always deals with the short term liability. So our green product green product project initiatives actually that requires the longer term finance. So this is the very much challenging for the banks for how they deploy their short-term fund, deploy into the longer-term fund. So there is the huge risk of mismaturity risk. That's why we circulated the green bond policy for banks and enterprise. Under the issuance of the bond, bank and finance company to raise the longer-term fund, and they can easily to finance in the longer term projects. And also under the bond taxonomy, we also cover the climate change mitigations and the climate change adaptation as well under the 8 sectors and the 88 activities. That means the sector low carbon and the electricity and heating, cooling, energy and resource efficiency, like that. So now actually we are working to align our national adaptation plan with the green bond technology for our better implementation of the bond taxonomy. Next slide, please. And as I said earlier, we giving the lending quota to the bank and finance company. Initially, that means that in the year 2020, we actually give the quota 5% and the 20% of the total term loan basis. Now we again revised our lending quota. And then now bank and finance company have disbursed 40% of the net outstanding of the previous year should be disbursed as a sustainable finance, and 5% of the net outstanding of the previous year should be the green finance. So after impact analysis, actually we did see the industry performance. Actually, they are very much neglected in the woman-led and business, and as well as the CMS business in the green sector. That's why we give the quota out of the 5%. That is, I said the 5% of the green finance. Out of the 5%, 20% should be the woman-led business and 25% to the CMSME business. Next slide, please. And this is our achievement from implementing the under the development or the implementing of the sustainable finance policy. You see that This is our achievement, and in the year 2025 up to, we industry have achieved the 14% of the total term loan could be the green finance, and 47%. Our target is 40%, but industry already achieved the 47%. This green finance and the sustainable finance could be benefited and also be achieved our sustainable development goal. And here I would like to share that this is the and a table top shows the disbursement, but what amount of the outstanding of the finance industries now actually out of the total outstanding of the industry, sustainable finance is the 33%, around 34%, and the 4.6% of the out of the total outstanding is the 4.60%. So our target is that by 2030, the industry has achieved the 50% of their financing should be the sustainable finance. Next slide, please. And this is the every policies and for the implementing, actually disclosure is very much needed. Why rationale behind the disclosure? That is ensuring the consistent and comparable and the transparent reporting aligning with the international best practices. And we giving the circular or the development of the disclosure guidelines, we include the regulatory template for the better impact analysis. And also this disclosure actually could be attract the foreign investors, and this disclosure which will be help to assess the sustainability rating, and also the commitment and the accountability, and also the rising of the global interest. And where they actually bank and finance company disclose their sustainability and the climate related financial risks and opportunities. Every bank and finance company should disclose their climate and sustainability related risks and opportunity disclosed in its balance sheets biannually or the semi-annually. And some of the in case of the disclosing materials, if any bank and finance company think that the some of the information is very much business sensitive in their end, so they what they not likely to disclose in its annual report, it is possible, but bank and finance company have to obtain prior approval from the central bank, that is the Bangladesh Bank. And next slide, please. And what actually we said under the IFRS S1 and S2, for the sustainability and the climate related financial disclosure actually depends on the 4 content pillars: governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and targets. So out of the 4 components, actually they're very much challenging to assess the metrics and targets, because under the metrics and targets, it requires the finance emissions. So for accurate and the accurate assessment of the finance emissions, for assessment the true and the reliable data is required. So this is very much challenges, because the now bank faces the data reliability. That's why actually we include in our guidelines some regulatory templates through the for taking the financial informations related, the climate related and the sustainability related risks and opportunities. Next. And as all of you know that because IFRS S1 and S2 is Neo 1 and the implementation process is very much challenging. That's why in aligning with the transition relief, we follow the transition relief. That's why we implement our S1 and S2 in the phase wise. And from the June 2024, actually bank and finance company disclose their this sort of informations in its financial estimate limited. And finally, in the year 2027, actually we fully adopt the IFRS and S1 and S2. Next slide, please. And this is the very much important for the data quality and the data availability and also the data reliability. That's why actually we give some regulatory template along with the sustainable finance policy and as well as the our guidelines for sustainability and the climate related financial disclosure. So and after collecting the information or data, actually we regularly disclose the disclose the sustainable finance report in our websites, and also the half yearly the disclosure report in our website. So now actually we are challenging for building the capacity of the bank peoples, because I said earlier metrics and target is very much challenging. That is the calculation of the finance emissions. Now we are actually working on developing a finance emission calculator for easy understanding of the bank and finance people. Next slide, please. This is the main challenges. That means the setting the target and metrics, and I already said that the calculation of the finance emissions and also the country-specific emission factors, because only one or two international organizations practicing that to calculate the finance emission. One is the pickup model, and another one is the most probably the Jim Foundation, like that. Now actually we follow the pickup method, but we are working with the pickup foundation for developing the own finance emission calculator. Then after once we develop the finance emission calculator, we circulate it to our financial industries to practice this. And another one is the institutional readiness, and also the technical complexity, quantifying the climate risks and the climate stress testing, and also the scenario analysis. And now Bangladesh Bank actually rigorously conducting awareness and capacity building for the bank and finance company to raise their capacity. Next one. So most probably that was my last slide. So actually this is our journey, and I think from my presentations, all of the AFI members can be benefited for developing their taxonomy as well as the implementation of this taxonomy. Thank you very much, Marcella.
Thank you so much, especially for giving us the presentation of a really complete journey and for your experience explaining it. It's so interesting that it's a green bond taxonomy, and also it's really interesting that the country already achieved a 47% of sustainable finance as percentage of total loan disbursement, and the year is not finished yet. It's just data until June, as you said. So I think it's a really interesting journey, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
So before passing to the next speaker, I just want to make a quick reminder that you can write your questions on the chat. Thank you, but because we already have one question that is going to be answered at the end, but I remind you to all the members that you can put your questions on the chat. So it is a pleasure also to introduce our next speaker. She's a Latin American colleague. Her name is Sani Ortiz, and she is the head of Accounting Standards team and director of Studies and Standards of the Central Bank of Paraguay. She is also a certified public accountant from the National University of Asunción and holds a master's degree in accounting and finance management from the University of Melbourne in Australia. She represents the Central Bank of Paraguay in the Inclusive Green Finance Working Group, and her areas of expertise are environmental and social risk management and green taxonomies. So it's a pleasure to give the floor to Sani.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Maricela. It's my pleasure to present our green taxonomy of Paraguay. That is pretty much newer than the previous countries. And in the next slide, we can start seeing that it was issued last year, 2024. And it was a kind of pretty fast journey comparing with other countries because we released in November of 2024 after less than 1 year of working. The characteristics and the features are pretty much similar than other countries. So the purpose was to align the Paraguayan economy with the NDCs as the framework structure that provides the foundational framework to identify the activities that are important for the country and support the investment, public and private sectors. The implementation roadmap outlines the efforts of the private sectors and also the public ones. So the purpose one is pretty much similar, as I'd say, than other taxonomies, the structure as well. And in the next slide, please. So here we can see the developing of the green taxonomy. It was an effort between the Ministry of Economic and Finance of Paraguay and the Central Bank of Paraguay as leaders in the top level of the governance. The experts group, the participants were almost 200 participants and 6 technical roundtables for just the technical part, right? Because we know that we are expert in finance, in economic, but the expert of these activities are the group of experts of each economic activity. And the IDB was the part they implemented, they lead the implementation of this green finance taxonomy and help us to coordinate as well. The next one. Next, please. Laura. Thank you. So as I said before, the implementation roadmap of our green taxonomy was really fast. And I think it was thanks to other experience from other countries. And also the experts gained from the experts, right? From the group of experts that help us to construct this taxonomy. And the first draft was issued in July of 2024 and was released to feedback and technical discussions in August. Then we have a public consultation phase in September when we release in the website and capture all the feedback. With all the feedback and all the questions, we have released a second draft, and the final ones was released in November of 2024. And next, please. Next one. Okay, so as I said before, the key features of a green taxonomy is pretty much similar, and it should be pretty much similar than others to be interoperable. So we have in account that the global interoperability aligns with global standards, ensure the consistency and comparability across countries. We focus only in environmental impacts and not much social, but environmentally, to promote activities that contribute positively to environmental goals and support transitions, and also governance and transparency. Next one. Next. Okay, so the taxonomy is designed with a governance, I say, of two ministries, two authorities, the Minister of Economic and Finance, as a central bank, and as a regulator of the financial system as well. I forgot to mention that. They set the fundamental principles and the objectives. Then with the technical expert group, they set the sectors and the economic activities. How they select the economic activities, and pretty much similar than the previous Chowar said, like in the Bangladesh Bank, the eligibility criteria. What is that? And that is activities that they contribute with the NDCs, and also compliance requirements, that activities do not significant harms, and the last one, the minimum social safeguard. So in the next slide, we present what we have selected. Like I just take notes that Mongolia select 8 sectors, Bangladesh select 14 sectors, but in the next slide we select 5 sectors, and just 87 economic activities. So in each sector, agriculture and forestry have 28 economic activities. Energy has 18 economic activities, livestock 9 economic activities, and construction 4 economic activities. And the objectives are pretty much similar than other taxonomies. Sorry for Spanish one, but it's like mitigation, circular economy, use land, and protection and prevention. So we have 18 economic activities, but it's like, as my colleagues say, is living, so it's open to more sectors in the future. Next one. Next, please. Yeah, so the scope of the Paraguayan Green Taxonomy in nature is voluntary, at the beginning at least, and is aligned with the NDC, reflect the technical consultations by sector as well. It's oriented toward public and private sector and is harmonized with budgetary language. So this is a particularly important characteristic because the taxonomy will be used for the public sector as well. So the Ministry of Economy and Finance will use for the budget. Next one. So because of these features, the users are us as financial supervisors, public policy makers, as well as financial institutions, companies, productive sector, and also the public sector in terms of expenditures, budget, classification, and investment projects. The presentation.
Yeah, just a second. We are going to share it again.
Yes, thank you. So next slide, please. So in the, as I say, here we are now in the implementation and then implementation step, and the main objective is to periodic updates to include new sectors and criteria. As I said, we have only 5, and mainly because we want to start slowly and because we want to make sure that not to be excluded. As Aurora, I think, said that many people think about this investment and in taxonomy, but it's not. So we are making sure that we are in the right hand. And also because it's initially voluntary, the discussion is if it should be mandatory or it should still continue voluntary, and how develop the guidelines for the financial and productive sectors, because it's voluntary. So we do have the ESRM, for example, guidelines, and it has some part of mandatory, some part of voluntary. So we are thinking about having the guidelines in the same line of the ESRM. Next one. Please. Thank you. So the implementation main challenges for us is like to include these guidelines and for integrating the green taxonomy into the general national budget, as I'd say. 6, to classify public spending because this special feature. Capacity building, and I think this is a common for all of the countries, and I think this is why AFI is going to have a key, or is having like a key play role for all of us to help us to understand why it's important, how we construct these taxonomies, and all of the roadmap of the other countries will help us to understand what or where is the right track. And the last main challenge is the evaluation of interoperability with other taxonomies, because we are aware that the regions have their own taxonomies. So we think it's pretty much similar and interoperable, but the main challenge is to work together. I think that is all of my part from my side. And this is the link. Unfortunately, I think it's in Spanish only. But is this if for the Latin American region? This is an example. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Sani. I think this is a great example, as you mentioned, because it's a brand new taxonomy. So it can be a really good guide for the ones that we already are not implemented the green taxonomy in the general steps, because each country focuses on different objectives and sectors. As you mentioned, for example, Paraguay has 5 sectors, but it's due to your own objectives and own characteristics. And it was really interesting also the focus on environmental impact, not social now, and harmonized with the budgetary language. So it was a really interesting journey too. I think that it will help us a lot to the countries that already don't have the green taxonomy. Thank you, Sani.
Thank you, Maricela. Thank you all.
Thank you. So our last but not least speaker, it's Ingrid. She is the manager of financial sector development and innovation from the National Bank of Rwanda. Thank you, Ingrid, for being here with us. As I told you, she is the manager of the financial sector development and innovation. And in her role, she drives the sector's development over areas of skill set development, inclusive financial services, financial technologies, green finance, and more. In the area of sustainable finance, she contributes at national level and to their central bank initiatives, namely the Sustainable Finance Roadmap, the taxonomy development, environmental and social risk management, as well as different research and diagnostic studies. So it will be really interesting to hear about Ingrid and the Central Bank of Rwanda. So thank you, Ingrid. I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Maricela, and all the prior speakers. This was a very interesting session. And I am happy to be presenting last because the approach I took for today's presentation is one of sort of sharing lessons learned and key takeaways and how people can go about their green taxonomy development journey. So, but before I go into that, on the next slide, Maricela, I will share our journey as Rwanda, what we have done so far into the sustainable finance field or area. So we started this journey. The journey started way before, especially under the Ministry of Environment, and for the financial sector specifically. This journey got to us around 2023, where we developed the very first sustainable finance roadmap in Rwanda. So the purpose of this roadmap was to steer the market together and show what strategic objectives and initiatives we can pursue and what can be the role of each of the players. What is the role of regulators, of financial service providers, the role of government agencies, and all of that. After putting this roadmap together that had specific actions, and actually everything we implemented after 2023 is part of that roadmap. Then the National Bank of Rwanda issued again their first guideline for disclosure and reporting for climate-related and environmental information. These guidelines set a foundation for how banks and microfinance institutions and insurance companies include sustainable financing and reporting in their main policies, especially risk management policies, governance, and reporting policies. The next, inside the National Bank of Rwanda, the same year, we established a sustainable finance group. This sometimes we see banks or central banks that have a department, specific department in charge of sustainable or green finance. At the bank, to start off, maybe in the future we'll have a separate department, but to start the journey, we created a cross-departmental working group. And that's because we wanted to holistically approach the issue of sustainable finance. So the sustainable finance group at the bank has three work streams. The first work stream is the sustainable financial sector work stream. So this is the work stream under which all stability and inclusion matters are discussed pertaining to sustainable finance. This is where matters of reporting, disclosures, data, stress testing are discussed. Then we have a second one on monetary policy and financial markets, and their focus is really to study how sustainable financing can or is affecting monetary policy and financial markets. And then we have a third work stream, which is what is called the Net Zero Central Bank, which basically has the goal and the target of greening the central bank itself. So basically carrying on internal initiatives around mobility, around waste management, or even any other initiatives that helps the central bank really become a green institution. So that was what is done internally, and it helps to steer the efforts and achieve what we've set out to achieve in sustainable finance. Then the fourth step and the most recent one this year, a few months ago, Rwanda launched Rwanda's green taxonomy. The taxonomy, I saw that Laura shared it before, but this was an effort of really identifying what sectors and how we basically manage financing those sectors to ensure that we achieve our climate adaptation and mitigation targets. So this has been the journey thus far. Next. So here I'm going to share what has been the lesson learned in terms of what success factors contribute to having a green taxonomy in any country. The first one is to establish a proper governance structure. My prior presenters have mentioned this and emphasized that a governance structure is important. And the governance structure really here for us in Rwanda, what it meant is that we were supposed to have a high level government, a high level national structure that would steer both at a political level, but also at a central government level, as well as the financial sector. So what that means is a high level working group or steering committee, whatever people choose to call it, that comprises of ministries, regulators, key government and non-government agencies at a very high level that will advocate, steer the implementation, and continue to push the execution and the formulation of a taxonomy for the country. And then on a lower level, you would have technical experts in different fields that are now doing the actual work of putting together a taxonomy. So that kind of structure is very important because a taxonomy is not just a financial sector thing, and it's not just a few institutions thing. It has to be comprehensive and holistic and include, let's say, all the countries' priorities and goals in terms of greening the country. So it's important to bring the available expertise and also the right kind of leadership to steer and give oversight to this process. The second prerequisite, I would say, is to think holistically. in the sense of, I mean, it's being scientific. Sorry, I got the numbering mixed up. Being scientific means that you need to have a taxonomy that helps you mobilize capital for national and global development goals. So basically, you have to balance. Usually, taxonomies have been pushed for global development goals, but it's also important to bring it to a national level and start think about what are the tangible conditions that can be put inside the country to help achieve this green taxonomy. It has to be ambitious, but at the same time realistic. It has to be rooted in, yes, global standard practices, but also in country specific conditions. This is, for example, the stage where countries choose to do a technical screening methodology or a whitelist methodology, which are all acceptable depending on the country's priorities, how much effort or what approach simply they're taking to building their taxonomy. Then the next point I would talk about as a success factor is balancing interoperability and local usability. So a taxonomy has to be like, it has to communicate with other taxonomies. So it's important that, for example, you look at peer countries like what we are doing here and be able to have a taxonomy that can speak to them, to speak to theirs, because that's when then you can ensure that things like capital flow, like expertise sharing, can really communicate from a country to country. But then it's also important to think about the local cases, for example, things of small and medium enterprises, things of land use, things of climate situations. These are things that vary from country to country, and it's important that a taxonomy, as much as it has global interoperability, but also it should and be able to be used on a local level. The point before the last one, which is to be holistic. A taxonomy is not a financial sector or a financial regulation document only. It also covers more corporates beyond the financial sector. So it's important to look at all the regulations that are in place, financial disclosures, but other corporate disclosures that are not financial, other systems, other existing regulations, so that the taxonomy can really be connected to existing, but also potentially new systems, regulations, disclosure requirements. And then the last part is to, like any initiative, stakeholder consultation is very, very key. You need to have engagement across sectors. You need to be able to collect feedback from the different stakeholders, either in the financial but also in the non-financial area. Next, Maricela. Am I still audible? The slide. Oh, okay. And usually, why do we even do taxonomies, and why is it important? When you do a green taxonomy right in a country, there's some benefits that you stand to gain. For example, there's catalyzing green lending. A taxonomy provides basis of key considerations and information to put in to consider while practicing green lending. So usually this would first allow for proper portfolio classification, and many countries, after establishing a green taxonomy, the UAE, for example, has seen a proper increase in green lending. Then there's financial product innovation. Because there's increase in lending, you would also see an outburst of new forms of lending related to sustainability or green financing. Concepts like structured finance, blended finance, outcome-based debt related to sustainability would start to take shape in a market and become a reality. The third one, which is the most obvious that many countries also put in place, green taxonomies, is to allow capital flows into economic activities that are sustainable. This has been a priority for many countries. I don't need to dwell on that. And then the last part I would mention is also that now a green taxonomy can shape existing and new policy initiatives around reporting, regulations, or expenditure. Now, the last slide from me, which is also something that kind of helps me bring everything home together, is Marisela, yes, is all of these things speak to each other. So, for example, a proper governance, because it's multi-stakeholder, allows you to take account of all the existing regulations and the new in pipeline and be able to have a taxonomy that can link both. Being scientific and ambitious, balancing interoperability, thinking holistically, allows you to bring the kind of innovation and steering the kind of lending or financing that can go into sustainable initiatives. So basically, when the right input is deployed, we stand to see all benefits, and it's all interlinked of green taxonomies. So I think for me, this is really what I wanted to communicate to the group, that it's important to think through the process even before you enter the process. And as you enter the process, I hope that if you apply some of these or all of these, you'd be able to go through it from a leadership and a technical standpoint and deliver something for your country that is able to give you actual results on a local and a global scale. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. I think, as you mentioned at the beginning, it was the perfect ending, because it was not just the journey, but also the general aspects of how to construct a green taxonomy and all of the other aspects that we have to take into account when we want to implement this type of taxonomies. So thank you, Ingrid. I think these slides are going to be so useful. Lara is going to share with every member the slides, but I think they're going to be really, really important to all the countries that we are in the process of, or that we are just beginning with this journey. Thank you again. So now we are going to the Q&A session. So we already have many questions on the chat. We are going to respond them. But we also have some questions prepared for our presenters. So I think we're going to start with Ingrid. Thank you very much in advance. And the question is, how can central banks apply proportionality to avoid overburdening small institutions with the green taxonomy? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marisela, for this great question. I'll speak of three things. One, the taxonomy itself has to take into account the variety of, again, the country uniqueness. What is the size of institutions, even in the financial sector, but also in the business world? What is the category? What are they invested in? When you are able to establish that, for example, in Rwanda, over agriculture employs over 60-something% of the Rwandan population. And this is not even large-scale agriculture. It's smallholder farmers agriculture. So for us, it was important that the issue of land use and agriculture is addressed on a small scale instead of large scale agriculture. So the taxonomy itself has to be cognizant of the local environment. The second thing is a phased approach. Implementation has to be phased, obviously. The requirements for screening, for reporting, have to be progressive from small to large enterprises. And then the last thing I would mention for is specifically now for regulators when it comes to reporting requirements and stress testing and data requirements. Again, a phased approach is necessary to be able to take into account the different sizes of financial sector players and also to identify what different actors play. For example, the critical role of the insurance sector in resilience has shown that insurance, especially for resilience, for climate resilience, is a very key aspect. So with that put in mind, I think two things: developing the taxonomy itself has to take into account the local context, and implementation has to be a progressive one. And lastly, from regulators, a tiered approach for data and reporting requirements is important.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. And taking into advantage that we already have you here responding to questions, there are two questions on the chat specifically for you. So the first one, let me translate it. It's Miss Ingrid, what criteria did you use to select the members of the governance structure apart from financial institutions?
Okay, sure. Do you want? Yes, I saw the questions. I was about to get to them on the chat, but yes, it's important I address them. So, in terms of the governance structure, the approach we took is to really look at everyone involved, in the sense that first we knew we wanted to have a holistic taxonomy that would take care of all corporates, not just the financial sector. So for us, the financial sector, that means the regulators, the associations of institutions were key, but also out of the financial sector, line ministries in Rwanda were very critical. And then we had ad hoc members that would come in for advisory, like development agencies, expert communities. But really, the main approach was from a government perspective, who is critical. So the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Trade and Commerce, other government agency like the Rwanda Green Fund, the National Bank of Rwanda, and the industry associations for bankers, insurances, and microfinances. All of those were critical to have at a leadership level. And at a technical expert level, the same. But then really here, technical expertise was a priority. And it was important that where we don't have full technical expertise, we carry it along with capacity building and also even getting experts to support from time to time.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. And the other question is actually, one that you can answer on the chat, because they're asking if it is possible to share with us the links which we can find all those documents put in place in your country regarding the green taxonomy. So thank you very much, Ingrid. We are going to continue with the questions. Now, maybe I'm going to ask Origin. And the question is, what are the key enablers of successful taxonomy implementation in EDMS?
That's a very interesting question. And can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Okay. To develop and implement green finance taxonomies, we should focus on shifting to implementation, not just taxonomy design. Before the Green Finance Taxonomy 2019, Mongolia launched its National Sustainable Finance Roadmap in 2018 to integrate sustainable finance principles throughout the financial system, including banking, insurance, and capital markets. However, the implementation of this agenda has been constrained by the absence of a common definition of environmentally sustainable activities such as green loans and green bonds. This gap has created barriers for project developers and financial institutions in identifying and comparing green investment opportunities. It has also raised assessment costs and increased the risk of greenwashing as market participants lack clear criteria to distinguish genuinely sustainable activities. The absence of accurate definitions and technical criteria further limits ability to measure Mongolia's progress towards its climate finance goals. To address this, Green Taxonomy Committee was established in 2019, bringing together regulators, ministries, and industry associations to develop a national taxonomy defining eligible green activities, and it expanded in 2023. So the most effective solution is that we must provide our participants with our information and make them understand very well what we are trying to achieve. Taxonomies must generate decision useful outputs, clear, accessible information that helps different market actors answer key questions such as what is the difference between green and non-green activities, what opportunities are available, how can risks be managed. Providing this information in a user-friendly way will enable emerging market development economies to integrate sustainability into decision-making. And also the activities identified on the taxonomy should be reviewed by the government and policymakers at a constant specific time period. Also, we need to adopt international standards and good practices. I believe that the best way is to introduce them step by step in accordance with the specifics of our country, and following the framework development, the implementation pace requires practical tools, clear usability guidelines, and capacity building to support adoption and supervisory use. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Origin. And we are going to read one of the questions that we have in the chat from one of the participants. It says, "Good afternoon. My name is Dewey Manem. I'm from Burundi. And her question, the question is, for a country that has not yet started the Green Finance Framework or has just completed a survey on the demand for this framework, what is the next step?" I don't know if Sani, Chowdhury, or Rodora want to answer this question. Sani Chowdhury or Rodora?
Yes. I think my colleagues has learned more experience. So Chowdhury, I think I can leave the mic to Bangladesh.
Chowdhury, we hear you.
Maricela, actually, I am guys. I am in the metro. Actually, this is the goat who raised the questions. He collected the data. This is the fine. Then next course of action is they come forward to need analysis of the country. That means the country need and country demand and country objectives, how they could go to the greening industry. So my experience, we before developing the taxonomy, we rigorously analysis the international best practices and we drafted the taxonomy. Then we emphasis on our country needs, especially to achieve the sustainable development goal or the climate agenda by the government. Then we are trying to analyze the international best practices and to fit into the taxonomy, but focusing with the country context. So after analysis of the data, then they go for the country need and country demands. Then they drafted drafted the taxonomy, focusing the country costs, but in aligning with the international best practices. Thank you.
Thank you
Hello.
so much, Chowdhury, especially because you answered from the metro. So kind. Rodora, I think you want to speak also.
Yeah, if I could just share
Thank you.
some insights. I think there's no one size fits all that would guide us if whether we should pursue the development of a taxonomy for our country. The survey that you have done should also guide the results of the survey should also guide your next step. For instance, when in our case, when before we develop the taxonomy, there are also discussion. Should we develop our own taxonomy or should we just use the regional taxonomy that's already done by that's already available, the ASEAN taxonomy for sustainable finance. However, there are still some unique factors that we should consider. That's why we pursue the development for our local taxonomy. And we also hear the feedback of our supervised banks, and they're also looking for the taxonomy that would guide to have a standardized framework in identifying the sustainable activities. So that's in our case, but I think for your country, you should hear the feedback of your of your market players. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodora. So useful advices too. Thank you to both. So I open the floor again to all our expositors and to answer the question from the audience. The question is, could you explain the different key stages involved in establishing a green taxonomy and who is involved in its implementation, not forgetting the mechanisms for its implementation? I don't know if you got the question or do I read it again? The question is, I'm going to read it again. Could you explain the different key stages involved in establishing a green taxonomy? Who is involved also? and the mechanisms for implementing it. So I open the floor to anyone that want to answer.
Maricela, just get down from the metro, so no problem. Oh, okay,
Thank you.
just I would like to share, but I would like to answer this question. At
Yeah.
first, they established a dedicated team for analyzing the international best practices and local demands. Then, they involve the stakeholders, especially the bank and finance company people, for rigorous consultations for drafting the taxonomy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chowdhury. And I don't know if anyone wants to add something.
Yes, Marcella.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I also echo Chowdhury's approach. In our case, well, after determining the need for the taxonomy, we have also formed dedicated sub teams for taxonomy at the financial sector regulators level. So the regulators are the ones that develop the taxonomy, but we also coordinate with the broader interagency group comprised of the different government agencies to ensure that the contents of the taxonomy are aligned with their respective programs. Actually, we also receive a lot of comments from the relevant government agencies, particularly the Department of Finance, the Energy, and those comments are articulated and considered in the taxonomy. And with respect to the implementation, since it's the financial sector regulators that issue the guidelines, so we're the ones also monitoring the implementation of this taxonomy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rodora. And thank you everyone for the useful answers.
Maricela, if I can point the person who asked this question to one resource.
Of course.
What we did in Rwanda is also to create a green taxonomy compass to sort of answer most of the questions you asked. Who uses it? How do you get to it? How is it framed, and how can it be implemented? So I'm dropping it in the chat, and I'm sure that even just looking at it will answer some of these questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ingrid. That's so useful. So before we finish, we just want to take the photo of everyone. So I encourage you to please allow your video to your screen like your photo. So your videos, so we are going to take the photo. I don't know if Laura wants to direct this part. I don't know who is going to take it.
Can we stop sharing, Kat? Are you ready?
Yeah,
Can you help
Arisa,
us?
I'm ready. So Arisa, if you can stop sharing the slides.
Thank you.
No, Arisa, you need to stop sharing. Okay, okay, so yeah, I've got some on the first screen. Okay, there's more coming on. Okay. All right, just on my count, 1, 2, 3. Smile. Just 1 second. Okay, so, Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Smile. And I'm going to take a last one. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for putting the video on. So we just want to thank everyone for connecting to this really important. I'm so sorry. I don't know who is speaking, but do you have a question? Okay, no, I think it was a mistake. So I just wanted to wrap up everything that we have talked today. I think it was a really interesting, insightful, and helpful webinar. I think as you saw, the journey of each country is different. Of course, it shares some general aspects that we can all learn from, but each country develops its own objectives and also adapts to its own characteristics, and it selects its own sectors, its own activities, because of course each country it's different. And the important thing to learn from today is that we have to get this holistic and approach for developing our green taxonomy, and that we have peers here that we can learn from, and that we can use the tools that we have from AFI to get to know what other countries have done, and not just in this webinars, but we can take the advantage of getting to know more deeply if we want to get the example of one specific country. So I think that we have a lot of information today to develop and implement our green taxonomy, or green bond taxonomy also. So I thank you all for your time, and we are going to be sharing more information through Laura. She's going to send us the slides and also the links that Ingrid shared. So thank you again. Have a good evening, day, or afternoon, depending from where you are.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the amazing moderation and presentation. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. See you.